because I need like an intro, which is perfect. So like I have the music on while I'm just talking random shit. So
you can see the record button got pressed in GarageBand, and you got an input going and everything.
yeah, GarageBand. I can see my voice bouncing up and down.
There you go. So no matter what, there's nothing that can get fucked up now.
There's something going, yeah, for sure.
There's a podcast, no matter what. Okay, let's take it. Take it from the top.
Take it from the top. Okay. I guess welcome to my show, Casual with Ryan Proctor. We got Andrew Freedman here, the Cannabis Sommelier wine guy, straight out of Calgary, right? In Calgary right now?
Yeah, Calgary, Alberta, Canada.
Yeah, we're doing the remote podcast. This is kind of like an experiment on my side. But yeah, we were talking on Instagram last night for like a few minutes, and I was like, who wants to podcast? Because I'm fucking bored. And then, yeah, so it's worked out, man. It's great. It's cool. Thanks for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me. I really enjoy podcasting. I think it's a great way to get to know somebody in a really short amount of time and take a deep dive into their psyche, because you can really unbury a lot of stuff talking to somebody for 45 minutes straight, especially when you need to keep the conversation going. So that's why I love podcasting.
I said that before too. It's like you're just obligated to talk, kind of. And if you're in the cheers, buddy.
Cheers.
Yeah.
Oh, you got a beer right there. I like your style. Yeah. Casual with Ryan Proctor, everyone.
Yeah. But if you're like, the thing is, by being in the conversation, you're already like ready to, like, you're there to talk, right? And if you're into it, you got to kind of have somebody who's into it too. If they're not there into it, it's going to be kind of a flat thing. So, and no one, I mean, this has been said 100 times on podcasts, but everyone just talks about how you don't talk to somebody for an hour, half an hour, whatever it is usually, that you don't know.
It's interesting. When I tried doing the podcast experiment, I was trying to pull them for 3 hours, and it was amazing to me the people that actually wanted to talk to me for 3 hours, and how intrinsically I began to know who they were as a person. And I love the idea of somebody actually having to engage, stare you in the eyes, and have a conversation.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's like you just don't there's like either peripheral sound or whatever sound like around you, or like distractions going on. And here I do find myself sometimes, like, you'll be listening and all of a sudden you'll see something interesting, and I train off and I go back, I'm like, what was I talking about? Like, even though it's so like focused on somebody, it still feels like sometimes I still just gap out and turn off. It's hard to listen for that long, like to be really that's the biggest thing, is like just attentive to somebody.
Totally. I started taking notes when I was podcasting more often, and I found, and I do it in meetings sometimes too, but I find when I start taking meetings, I start focusing on my note more than the next question that might need to be asked or answered. So I've given up on that, and I'm better with just telling people I forgot what I was going to say now.
Yeah, I that's the thing, is like, just be honest, right? If you forget what you're talking about, you forget what you're talking about. I tried to take notes a couple times, and I just try to focus on the notes, and then things just get choppy and weird. Yeah. And unless they have certain things to cover, it's just not worth my time, really. And it's casual, man. Like, sometimes I don't even record the damn thing.
It's casual. Oh, my favorite part is when you get to see the title, or they say the title of a movie, and you just drop that bomb. We're like 2 minutes in, 4 minutes in, time stamp it. There it was. It's casual. Everybody.
Yeah. So what have you been doing, man? What's been going on? You've been we worked together a couple times, just on one event anyway. I see you once in a while, but what have you been doing recently? What's been going on? I mean, let's not talk about this virus thing too much, but
I don't really care for the virus, so I don't want to talk about it either.
Yeah.
Things were really exciting. This was the month that I was going to have the most speaking engagements I had ever had, and it was going international. I was supposed to be in Nashville this weekend speaking to the American Culinary Federation, because I am one of the first people accredited in cannabis cuisine and edibles from the American Culinary Federation. It doesn't mean much to us Canadian guys, but the ACF is the biggest accrediting culinary body in North America. And it's like a really big thing to be part of the ACF. It's like the chefs union for America and the teaching body. So they have start a cannabis cuisine and edibles program that's really, really exciting to me. They're going to be accrediting people in that. So I was going to be down there talking to them. And then I was supposed to be at the Growing Summit in Kelowna doing some dinners and teaching people about the parallels of cannabis and wine. And then I was going to be speaking at HempFest as well. But unfortunately, the C-19 shut us down, locked us in the house, and made us incur some reefer madness. But that's okay. I'm pretty good at self-isolating anyways. I think working from home and being a musician and all the things that I've been doing like the past 3 years of my life, I kind of realized that I didn't know the word self-isolating yet, but I'd clearly been doing it.
Yeah. It's kind of like you don't even notice, right? Like it just seems normal. But then once you have to do it, you're kind of like, I don't want to do it.
I'm good with it, honestly. Yeah. I don't like people that much anyways. Like, it's so funny because I say, like, oh, my favorite things to do are talk and, well, I love consuming cannabis, pontificating about it. I love wine. Yeah. I love food. I like parties, but I like parties that end at 10 o'clock. So people, take them or leave them, whatever. But they're a very important part of the equation. So that's always fun.
Yeah, it's like I don't know. Like we just had. I don't want to talk about it. I'm going to fade into this right now. So I don't want to talk about it at all for the most part. But yeah. So you do this. Like your job is pretty much focused on cannabis, right? So you do speaking engagement stuff. So and then how often do you, like you said, you're a musician? How often do you play music? Like do you play like gigs and do you get paid for it and stuff? Or?
I was a full-time musician before this. So actually everything that I do in the Cannabis Sommelier is really a transition of all of my failures from music. Had I taken the same model that I approached the Cannabis Sommelier project with in my music world, I would have been much more successful. But in turn, my music attributes are what gave me the opportunity to understand PR, content creation, all of these things. So I've played a couple of shows as the Cannabis Sommelier, actually. I'll send you the Cannabis Sommelier rap song. It's a frickin' heater. So you can throw it in right here if you want. We can chop it. What's my name? What's my name? The Cannabis Sommelier. It's a heater. So I actually met my wife at my album release in 2014. I wrote an album, which was really cool. And it wasn't like successful and I didn't like make money or anything, but I wrote a full length hour-long album and it, locally it did really well. And I wrote actually a lot of music. I was thinking now that we're in this social break, I would release the 26 other tracks that I wrote as a follow-up album to my first album. Man. I love music. I now have a jam band called Hershey Moigel and the Bad Jews. So I'm Hershey Moigel, and then kind of it's a rotating cast of characters that are the Bad Jews. That's the band, but really at heart we're all bad Jews. Is kind of the shtick behind it, and shirts that say "I heart BJs" are always funny. So music's more of like it's taken a transition. I like that it hasn't become my career or something that I wanted to do. Like at one point I really wanted to be a famous musician. That was like my goal. That's what I dedicated a lot of time to in my life, a lot of my, heart and soul. And now it's a lot more fun just like playing music for the sake of like playing music. And I really love it. I play guitar and bass and drums. I've been playing drums for 15 years, and since buying a house and having a basement, it's been incredible to just play drums every day. And
drums are one of those things you can't just like live in an apartment and learn how to play the drums.
No, there is no opportunity there. Like you can have an electronic kit, I guess,
drum pads, whatever, for sure. But like the real drum kit,
it's not the same. It's definitely not the same as an acoustic kit shaking around in front of you. You get that vibe, you get those feels, and it's really cool like growing up also and being around actual musicians and finding these guys and almost, kind of enlisting musicians constantly everywhere I go. Hey, do you play an instrument? Do you play an instrument? And then finding these guys that are excellent musicians to just come and jam with is really cool, and it's a great way to make a bunch of new friendships as well. So no, I'm not playing gigs, but I'm playing more music than I ever have. I feel like
that's cool, man. It's like inspiring because like I guess You know, it's one thing when you do things for a living and you do it for fun and it becomes a living or something like that. It's sometimes, I mean, I don't know a lot about music, but I feel like you sometimes just don't want to do it in your spare time. But if you're just doing it for fun and the new experience, like meeting somebody new and playing with them, that's pretty rad, man. 'Cause you learn like new styles or just like different influence along the way. It's pretty rad.
Totally, and it's all about improvisation too. It's just like anything, right? Podcasting, stand up,
Yeah.
it's public speaking. You have to continue improvising, and music's been a great thing to understand, like playing with an audience. When I was a DJ and I played a lot of DJ shows, that was a big thing, like understanding and reading people and really finding what they like. And I guess that's true for anything, even with my YouTube channel. If I wasn't looking at trends, not that I like pick exact trends, but if I wasn't looking at trends that were made sense to the actual channel, then I wouldn't be very successful at all. It would be extremely stagnant. Like I saw right away what wasn't working, and I knew I needed to change that, or else I'd be sunk in like I loved the niche I had created for myself, but I knew that niche would probably bury me, and I needed to diversify or else. And that's why, you see cannabis reviews, cannabis product unboxings, all of these other things that get way more viewership, because that was one of the rabbit holes I guess I fell down as a musician, was thinking like, and what's funny is like the music I wrote, the album I wrote was called The New House, and it's like hip hop and house and trap music, and it's everything that like people listen to now and is trendy and cool, and like the lo-fi jazz channel or whatever on YouTube. But at the time, I was so stern in what I thought I needed and what I thought the music industry wanted. I wanted to play instruments on stage, and I wanted to do this and that. And like the reality of it was like I was the opener, and maybe that wasn't my spot, but I kept pushing it and I kept doing it. And inevitably it might have been a little bit of my downfall, but you know what? I wouldn't have been happy with myself if I hadn't pushed in that direction.
Right. So what, like, you've obviously done some cool shit as far as like, switching from trying to be a musician. And so you went into being a sommelier after that, right? Or how long were you doing at the same time, I guess? Or like
the sommelier thing happened because I was failing at everything else. No, I had sorry, I'm trying to set you up here good.
Oh, man, it's all good.
I had gone to Vancouver to work in cannabis, and that was kind of a dud in the end.
Yeah.
And I came back, and when I had left was when I was really cranking it out in music, and I was hyper focused on it. And then I left, and I released one track on an EP that I had put together for a cool group, collective Knock Deluxe, that's still releasing music and is still like a big driving force. But it just kind of fizzled because I left. I don't even remember what I was talking about anymore. But
I asked you why what made you get into being a sommelier.
Oh yeah, perfect, right? Because music fizzled. That was really it. I was like, oh, okay, this is my dream. This is like what I really want to do. I still want to be in front of people. I still want to be a showman. And I'd come back from Vancouver, and I was supposed to play the Redman and Method Man show, and I didn't get that bill.
No shit.
And I got to open for some cool people. Like I rapped as an opener for Souls of Mischief and Talib Kweli, and like
cool,
really cool guys that I never could have imagined hanging out with. But I played a lot of EDM and stuff like that. But I was watching Netflix, and I saw a documentary called Somm, and the first 3 minutes they're like telling you what kind of wine it is, how much the wine costs, what year it's from, and using all this amazing vocabulary. And I was like, holy shit, this is what I did in cannabis as a buyer for all these years. Just everybody always argued who's got the better cannabis, and like mine's better than yours, blah, blah, blah. And I knew that if these guys were the most accredited palates in the world, and I had similar accreditations to them, that nobody could then for lack of a better term, poo-poo what I was saying and say,
Right.
no, you're wrong. And I saw it as an amazing way to accredit myself as a leader in the cannabis community. And so like 5 minutes into that documentary, I searched Calgary wine courses, and I booked one. That was a Tuesday, and I booked a course for a Friday, WSET level 1, which is kind of where you start. And I went to that course, and I loved it. Actually, funny story. The first question she asked, she was like, what other agricultural product is strain specific and has over 150 different varietals and is growing all over the world? And I was like, boom, cannabis. And everybody laughed at me. And I was like, no, you'll see. I'm going to be the cannabis sommelier. And everybody's like, ah, ha, ha, ha. And the lady came up after, and she's like, I'm not going to ask that question anymore. I was like, yeah, you shouldn't. And so I went home, and I was really stoked on it because I had worked and grown cannabis before. I knew I needed to be connected to the agricultural product. So I wrote a pretty inflated CV and put out like 50 resumes, and I got a job on a winery as an apprentice winemaker, cellar hand. Sweet. And I lived on the winery for the next couple months. Just soaking it all in and like really, and that was another big thing. Like if I wanted to be somebody, I had to go work in winemaking, and now I have like that incredible experience of like living on the bench and just being around winemakers and living on a vineyard for 4 months and like only working and only studying. And that really gave me a lot of street cred to get in the doors that I needed to, and it actually got me my job. I ended up selling fine wines, fine Italian wines, because my mom went to a wine show and ended up meeting my future mentor and was like, yeah, my son's in BC making wine. He's like a wine guy. And he's like, what? There's a kid from Calgary who wants to make wine? Yeah. And I got this guy's number, and I had to call him like 6 times, and he finally met me. We met for coffee, and I started talking to him, and like 12 minutes into our meeting, he's like, yeah, so you need to come work for me. And I was like, okay, perfect. And that put me in a position to be a on-premise wine consultant and just work with fine dining restaurants.
That's pretty cool, man. It's like, so sounds like a journey, but is there like levels to being a sommelier? You're like, it's like a master, and there's like different things going on, but at some point you're a sommelier, you just have a different level of it, right? Like if you take,
there's a real interesting hierarchy. So like
political, huh?
It kind of is, and that's why I take like a big beef to it when people call themselves like cannabis sommelier when they take a 1-day course from Canna Reps, and then they go around flaunting that they're like a sommelier when
it's like anybody doing things.
Yeah, the word sommelier is wine steward. So at its core, like a sommelier is somebody that controls a wine program. There are 2 streams in the wine world. There's a master of wine and there's a master sommelier. The master of wine is very scientific, never goes onto like the sales floor. It's not working in a restaurant, and gets to write everything, and it's much more analytic and scientific. Whereas the sommelier stream, you really need to be like have proper service. There's fine dining service and etiquette. You need to be like able to speak and pontificate your ideas, not just write them out. So one side is really for like the swag, and one side is much nerdier. I am a WSET level 3, so that's the Wine and Spirit Education Trust, which is the oldest accrediting body for wine education in the world. They started in 1868 in the UK. And that's kind of where everybody starts. To be a master of wine, you need to get your diploma from WSET, which is your WSET 4. I'm a WSET 3, which is an international accreditation in wine. So it's like the level if you want to control like, an international wine program for a hotel chain or something like that. This is kind of like the standard that they'd expect. Okay. And then the sommelier side, you go to the court of master sommeliers and you become a certified sommelier, an advanced sommelier, and then you take the master sommelier course. There's like 380 master sommeliers that have ever existed. Shout out to my boy Kurt Da Silva, who's sitting for his master sommelier, court of master sommelier exams this year. Absolute G.
Yeah, like I watched. Shout out to him, man. I watched that movie. I mean, this is probably so basic, but like it seems stressful. Like you go in there and you're trying to like at the highest level. Like they put you under the gun, eh? Like
it's hard, man.
Yeah.
To be a master in anything. That's why I fucking hate the term master grower.
Yeah.
Like,
oh yeah.
you know, it really chokes me up. I have a friend, Chef Michael Alamier, and he's a master chef. You know how many master chefs there's ever been in the world?
I don't know.
180.
Like legitimately ones, right? Like, yeah, okay.
Real accredited master chef. You know who gives out the master chef accreditation? The American Culinary Federation, the Canadian Culinary Federation, the French Culinary Federation are like the accrediting bodies for it. And
are they all like in like cahoots? Like with the American company, is it like the same?
Yeah.
It's all the same rules, just different countries.
The first one, I believe, somebody might jump down my throat, but I actually think the ACF started the very first master chef thing, and they were collected because there's like all these hardcore culinary competitions around the world. Like there's a side of culinary competition that unless you're like a huge food nerd, you would never know about. And so, you know, there's these massive culinary Olympics that happen. And as these people were collecting, and all these peers were together, they knew that they needed to figure out a way to accredit a master, because the word master is thrown around way too easily.
In everything, man. Like you'd be like a Jedi master. That's tough, man. And like,
yeah,
like,
you don't get to be a Jedi master. You got to be a Padawan for a long time.
For sure. Yeah, totally. I'm not a Star Wars guy, but I mean, even just like being like a master chef, just like even like, I don't know, the master, I'll be like a master jiu-jitsu or something like that. Even just kind of like your black belt kind of stuff. It takes a long time to get that shit, man.
While we're on my pet peeves, aside from master, I hate how easily standing ovations are given. It just fucking chaps my ass how everybody thinks. Oh.
You know what's funny with that is like when you see it happening, you're like, really? And you're like kind of sitting, you're like, like, all right. And you just get up and just do it. And you're like, this isn't not, you're like, fuck. And because you feel dumb sitting down.
Yep.
Like, I guess maybe, I don't know. Do you just say fuck it and like sit it out and go, nope, I'm not into it?
You heard how much I hate people. I started this whole podcast with fuck people. I walked into Princess Auto today, so Alberta declared a state of emergency, and I needed butane so I could take dabs. Obviously, great pandemic planning. And there was 120 people in Princess Auto for some reason, and right at the front, I know, it was the busiest place in Calgary today.
They sell toilet paper there? Yeah.
No toilet paper, just mechanical supplies. So I walk in and they have gloves for everybody. And I like look at the gloves and I'm like, yeah, you know what? I'm going to put on some gloves for sure. They're here for a reason. No problem. Yeah. And this guy behind me laughs out loud at me. Like,
we're declared a state of emergency as well in BC too just this afternoon. And then Ontario's got it. But I don't know what the difference is.
So Calgary also, at the municipal level, they also declared a state of emergency because everybody unlocks emergency and contingency funds. Basically, it's all a big finesse of the bank of now what can happen. Just like Trump printing $270 billion to bail out, or $670 billion to bail out the stock market. Now you get to unlock all these secret funds that may or may not exist.
And different rules too, right? Where they can like change like how they operate police wise and everything else too, I guess, eh?
Yeah, that was a big thing. Like they can change. So now with the state of emergency in Calgary, like if you come to Calgary and you've driven over the border from Montana, even though there's still that free trade over the border, you have to quarantine. If you don't quarantine for 14 days, like they're willing to fine you.
Yeah, that's crazy, man. But let's I'm gonna move on from the quarantine stuff a little bit because we'll probably jump into it every once in a while because it'll relate. But
we have to, it's good shit. As we look back and we have this footprint on the internet, you know, these are very interesting times. And if I could have done video podcasts during World War II when the same economic crises were plaguing, you know, global society,
it's like a journal.
Yeah. Exactly. It's incredible. And these conversations are what will, you know, really shape future conversations. I think it's super responsible. I was planning on being in Vancouver, like, and Whistler. I was going to come snowboarding with you before the end of the season. Like I was just gonna be like, fuck it, let's go ride. And now Lake Louise and Sunshine are both closed, and I gotta, you know, passes that are burners now.
Dude, yeah, well, that's the same thing that happened here, right? But like, I don't think I would have like we talked about podcasting, if in the past, crossing paths and stuff, just about like the general idea of it. But I don't know if I would have. Like if this didn't happen, I mean, I'm not saying like this virus is good for podcasting, but we probably wouldn't be doing this at this moment, right? We would have just been, maybe it would have been put off or wait till we were in person or something.
Totally.
So,
Totally.
yeah.
It changes the social dynamic for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. I think like even just today, like just going outside, I went for a quick bike ride around my neighborhood here, and I haven't been outside all day. But people started walking around doing shit. I mean, not that it's bad, but like you can see they're all walking by themselves.
Yeah. I'm out with the dog, and I saw my neighbor and her dog's barking from across the street, and I'm like, you just stay over there. Like,
yeah. Yeah. Are you right in Calgary, or you live out near like around the outskirts or something?
I am.
You like dead central.
I like to say I'm in the deep south.
Right.
I'm as far south as you can possibly be. It takes like 40 minutes to get to the airport.
And still be in Calgary though, yeah, right.
Yeah, like I can drive to the city limit in 2 minutes. Like I'm the very last stretch at the end of the city.
What's it like there for like as your job as a sommelier, or do you still, like, we did that event not long ago. Super cool, man, the way you hosted it, and just like how you brought the idea of wine and cannabis together. You were talking like the prohibition kind of style of it all, but what's the appetite there in Calgary for this kind of stuff? Is it you seem like you kind of move around a lot?
It's not Calgary's definitely not as hungry as anywhere else that's more culturally starved. Well, I guess we're culturally starved here. There's like Toronto, and the event that you saw in February for the Elevated Dining Series was incredible. Like, we had to turn away people. It was 42 people, sold out restaurant, full staff. Like, that was my dream to fruition completely.
Right.
When I've gone to Chicago or Beverly Hills to do different parties, 100 plus people, 150 people, totally different atmosphere, narrative, dialogue, everything going on. Calgary, not so much. I thought I had a partner for 420 to do a dinner, a restaurant partner, and they bailed out, even though I made it very clear, the risks that were involved. And
right.
Then they were just like, no, at first it was like, yeah, we're good with the risks. And then it was, no, we're not into it. So here, the whole base of the Elevated Dining Series and everything that I've done, and me trying to change the culture and bring the conversation of cannabis back to the dinner table, has had to be done in private residences and Airbnbs. And there's very limiting factors on those venues compared to actually being able to operate in a restaurant. So people are willing to take more risks in those bigger cities. Not that Calgary's not the fourth biggest city in Canada. It's just it's very conservative. So there's a very big reality that I need to travel to keep pushing the idea that I want to push.
Yeah, it's like I mean that event was cool. I always just thought, I got a headache here, so I'm just fucking with my hair. I always thought, I mean, I guess I kind of assumed that Calgary is a little bit less that way, like more open to it at all. But then I figured maybe there's more wine things going on for you there, because you still do that stuff. Do you even do event, like just strictly wine events anymore? Like,
no, I left the wine industry a while ago.
Okay.
When I left the liquor industry, I was the Luxardo ambassador for Western Canada.
Oh, cool.
And was selling wine. But like I did a wine and cannabis party, 3 wine and cannabis party like 10 days ago, which is fun. So I still have, but now like obviously my private party business is completely halted. So no, I haven't worked in wine at all. There's obviously lots of wine events that are going on and lots of things I could do, but it's a pretty cutthroat industry, right? It's crazy to think that there's 186,000. This is a great relation to anybody that knows you from the cannabis industry. There's 186,000 liquor SKUs in Alberta that any person can buy, and there's 700, 800 people like actually on the front lines selling those 186,000 SKUs. So you really know everybody, and the industry is very cutthroat. It's quite deceptive. You have to bend the rules to be
booze,
competitive. Man. It's booze, exactly. It's what cannabis will be very quickly. Everybody's just too hoity-toity and doesn't understand it and never did their due diligence to realize what they were actually getting into. So no, I wanted to be in booze and in that sales side of booze so that I could learn supply chain management and all these things for CPG products. I worked with Red Bull as well because I knew that everything I've been doing for like the last 6 years adds up to where I am now as the director of retail development for a cannabis retail group, and having my own hustle as well, because I needed to understand like how distribution works, how to do all this, because my initial plan was to distribute cannabis brands. I thought through my network I'd be able to take all of my legacy connections and have the premier distribution agency in Canada, which is still a big reality. But that was the initial plan of like really understanding wine and provincial systems, and why I became a Canadian wine scholar as well. I'm one of few Canadian wine scholars, just because I wanted to know Canada liquor laws in and out. As a consultant, I saw them literally reflecting each other. The end of Prohibition wasn't very different 80 years ago or 100 years ago than it was, a couple of years ago.
What do you see like? I'm going to ask you a question. I'm going to go check my camera to make sure it's still recording, because it happens all the time that it stops. But I guess since you've been doing like, you were deep in the wine industry and the alcohol in the side of things, and the cannabis industry that we're both in right now is, heavily operated by tobacco and alcohol guys and women and just people in general. And I know the alcohol industry is very much older, but do you see like, what are the top? It's probably a lot, but like, what are the top couple of parallels you see right now? Like maybe the cannabis industry catching up to these things. Like, what do you see as some of the similarities or maybe the downfalls that cannabis might fall into?
Yeah, go check your camera while I answer this question. So one of the big things that I see actually right now is that most of the executives from alcohol are the ones that are running cannabis right now. Like if you look at any board of any cannabis company, there's somebody from, like you said, big alcohol, mainly. Big tobacco is not so much in there. A lot of those guys, they realized, were kind of schmucks and couldn't hang as well, weren't as big of hustlers. But what can cannabis learn? Corruption's absolute, and that part of it is kind of messed up. We can definitely, in the next 6 to 12 months, you're going to start seeing allocations, and relationship sales are a really big thing in alcohol. If you don't know the right person, then you don't get the right product, then you don't bring the correct consumer to your brick and mortar store. As that world evolves, like if we look at Connect, which they use in BC and Alberta right now, two separate because of the provincial bodies, but same operating system. There's an open stock, a general stock, and then there's allocations where I can bring in very specific things. And me as a liquor retailer, I can go anywhere in the world. I can bring in 6 cases of whatever I want, skew it, pay my duties with AGLC, and then I can go out and sell that product.
Right.
That's going to happen really quick. Like the next 24 months in cannabis are going to change extremely rapidly, and I don't think a lot of these retailers or a lot of these distributors are ready for the hard reality of actually having to be salespeople, aside from like just pushers. Like right now, you get the order sheet from AGLC, for example, and you have a guaranteed and a non-guaranteed list. Right. And basically everybody puts a gamble in on the non-guaranteed list and asks for as much as they can. And then the guaranteed list is all the boof that nobody really fucking wants from Canopy, Aurora, and all these big guys that...
But they're making tons of it, so they know you can just get it, right?
Exactly. But every time somebody doesn't buy it because it's not selling in any of these retail locations, which we're seeing only the good cannabis sells, then the stale date just gets older and older and older and older. Right. And then those guarantee products become less and less desirable. The not guarantee products become more and more desirable.
And harder to get, yeah.
Harder for now. The other reality, if there's 186,000 alcohol SKUs in Alberta alone, then how long does it take for hundreds, if not thousands, of extra SKUs to be added into provincial programs for cannabis? Like I know hundreds of ones that are pending for legalization 2.0 from
Right.
tons of different producers. We're going to see tons of micros pushing their products through people's different sales licenses.
Right.
So really quickly, if you don't have the correct market share and the correct reputation, your product's going to become obsolete, and it's going to be the Jackson Triggs yellowtail of the industry, and you're going to see a lot of local producers and a lot of regionality start popping up. Like, the list of small LPs that are awaiting sales licenses is ever growing, and there's not very many micros. I believe there's 26 in Canada right now, but again, that's 26 more producers who will probably put out 12 to 18 more SKUs. Right there is 400 SKUs. So that's what I think cannabis needs to learn from alcohol, is that relationships are a real thing. And
I think that's with most industries for sure. Like, people, I guess I don't know a lot about I know a little bit about the distribution and stuff like that, but like, I feel like, if the provinces control it, your distribution is more like, it's kind of like you're just get it with wherever you can get it, right? Like, if the provinces buy it and then allocate it to shops or whatever, just an alcohol or cannabis, there's only a certain selection that you just sell to each province, right? So sometimes you just can't get it. But booze is more free range right now, right? Like you said, you can get it from wherever.
For now. Because, again, we're going to have thousands of SKUs come on market across Canada from medium, small producers. And you're going to see an explosion of my air quote craft product that is very regional, and you'll see a lot of regionality being supported, and you'll see much better cannabis come out, and it's going to drive prices low because you're going to see this cannabis come out from people that have a legacy mentality, where it's going to be, top end $12.99 a gram, and it's going to be fantastic cannabis like what you come to expect in the top shelf in America.
I think it'll be cool to see like alcohol, you have these brands that are great. I think it'd be cool to see how it turns out, because there's craft brewers. I mean, it's not the best. There's some craft breweries that aren't that great, but sometimes they just get they get a good name because they're craft brewery. But like, it'd be cool to see these small cannabis companies come online and see what happens, what they're doing. Mm-hmm. And I think it's like you just need to have that leg up somehow, or get that step into it, and then you're pretty much off to the races, I guess, because there was a barrier. I mean, the barrier to entry is pretty strong still as far as cash goes, right? So like
massive. I'm working with a few guys right now, and it's you need a couple $1 million, and that was easy a couple years ago, but now getting a couple $1 million out of anybody for your cannabis idea is
it's tough, right?
Yeah. I don't know if you saw what Tilray or Sundial are worth today, but no. I would hedge my bet that they're going bankrupt at the end of the month. Like, they're going to take Sundial off the TSX real quick. I think it closed at 67 cents today. Tilray is, when I looked at noon, was at $2.85, contrasting that to the $189 they were worth 16 months ago.
Fuck, man. But,
that's fucked.
Isn't that? I mean, I don't really follow it that much, and I don't want to get into it too much because I work in it. But like, I think is this current outbreak? I know it's like 3 weeks old in Canada. Maybe like that's when the hype started becoming pretty strong, I guess. But like, that's probably. I mean, I know they were kind of going down beforehand.
Yep.
But this is a huge drop for everybody in this respect for this.
Yep.
But I wonder how much of it, if this virus thing didn't happen, what the
Tilray'd still be going out of business.
Right. Yeah. Fair enough.
I put money on that. I've seen the Hexo, Sundial, Tilray. They're sinking ships. Toll processors, Valence, they're making money. Oxley's making money. There's companies that are out there making money, no problem, right?
Right.
Not to speak too closely, but I know there's there's good burns and there's good money to be made out there. You don't need to be. There's blood in the water, though, in a lot of these places. People that overspent and are now, like, if you look at Canopy today, they decided to close every store that they have money in and are probably going to close their grows down. And I was like, oh, great. You can take the crop insurance, just like any agricultural product, lay off all your staff, and then show your investors that you saved some earnings. Like, pretty fucking sleazy move to blame a virus to appease your shareholders because it's a big sinking ship of overspending and greed.
Right. It's like a perfect storm, I guess. They can use it as. I mean, I don't know. I don't really follow it that much, but I guess like. Yeah, I mean, these are fucked up times for sure, but it's almost like the .com bubble, which I don't really know. I don't really know much about it, but what I've heard, the big hype, and then it just kind of falls apart, and then the really strong ones survive. So,
like anything,
yeah, I mean,
right?
It's pretty standard, right? It's like a football season or baseball season. The strongest survive, and it goes up and down.
That's it. Like we were just talking about, I've been working with people for different raises and different things, and one of the teams, I actually said today, like, hey, instead of like putting this money up, why don't we go and buy something else that's already going and do what we want to it? Because
yeah, right,
that's the reality with a public company. If you're worthless and you have a specific market cap, you can just buy a company.
Jeez, that's the thing. Like, there's gonna be, I mean, I guess this happens a lot, like just bigger companies that have the money. Anybody survives this,
should see Lyft.
Yeah, right.
Oh man, yeah. I just got a thing from BNN Bloomberg, right? And it's not like I'm talking shit. It's all on the news wire. Like,
it's facts, yeah, for sure.
They took coronavirus and just fired and laid off a whole bunch of people and said that was their excuse. And so they're done like providing any info to retailers, and they refuse to comment how many people still work for the company. Which is like, youch. And last time I looked, they were real cheap. I was talking to somebody who literally said, oh, we should probably just buy this whole thing. And I was like, well, no, that seems ruthless.
Oh, right, because they were public. I totally didn't even like...
Yeah.
Totally just, yeah, right. Oh, man.
And so that's an interesting
it's a shame. It's a shame. Like, I mean, everybody had so much hype, and I don't know how much I can talk about. Like, I mean, I'm not going to say a ton of where I work and stuff, but like, I think it's a real shame that all this hype didn't work out, like...
It'll work out for the right players. I think that's
true.
One of the really interesting parts of this industry, and one of the reasons like a lot of people from that legacy market are upset, because they know that they're operators that have had to continue having money coming in. They have to have cash flow positive businesses, or else their business doesn't operate. And so I see a lot of people who might not have the same business acumen or professionalism, but have been running professional illicit businesses for a long time that stayed cash flow positive, doing the exact same things that everybody out here is doing. Right. That's all the way from events to selling and growing cannabis. So
there's always a market, like even the black, I don't know, even the legacy market, the black market, the gray market, whatever everybody calls it. I don't even like any of those names anymore, but I don't know what to call it now. It's the other market, but like that's still, I mean, the prices have changed, but it's still pretty strong. Like, I mean, there's still people going good grass out there. So like, it's like people still want it.
Yeah. And prices are rock bottom too. Like, for what I can speak of to that, never in my life have I seen or heard of such cheap cannabis at quality.
Yeah. I haven't really bought it on the other market for a while, but
$1,000 pounds are everywhere.
Yeah, right. Yeah, like that's the thing. Like when I was like 18 or 20, even when I used to manage it, it was like you can get like $2,800, man. 30, like people would pay a lot, $2,000-$3,000, way back in like, I don't know, late 90s even.
Yeah, now it's becoming again kind of a worthless commodity, which is really fucked up. But as
because I mean, it's a worthless. Yeah, it kind of is, right? Because there's only a few ones that'll survive this, and right now it's everything's at the bottom. Like, how much is it's like $4 or $5 a gram, I guess, right? At that point, if you're getting, actually no, it's $1,000 a pound.
Yeah, $4.42 or $4.48 in a pound, so just above $2 a gram, which is nothing, absolutely nothing. Because if you look at what like profitability is for a large LP, for our listeners that don't know these things but are maybe interested in it, you really need to get below $1.74 to have profitability. If cannabis is being sold around that $2.12, you can see the actual margins that people are operating under. But
you're still getting it. If you're buying an eighth or a quarter, you're still you're not spending.
Well, then you're spending $30, and the guy who's taking the risk is making a lot of money, because with mandatory minimums, I guess, came in a lot of that stuff. If you want to, and it's always been that way. If you want to sell dime bags, you will forever and always make the most money. You can sell a pallet of cannabis and make $1,000, $2,000 on a quick flip, and you've sold 500 pounds. Or you could buy a pound for $1,000, flip it all in eighths, and be a rich motherfucker. So the hustler always wins.
Yeah, for sure. It's like that dude. What's that television show? Damn, I'm gonna forget. The story's gonna suck. It's on like TLC where he goes and just buys a bunch of garbage that he just works people at the bottom. What's his? Damn it. Anyway, he makes a killing because he'll go and just go in and somebody's got a room full of wheels, casters for I got 1,000 of them. I got stuck with them. I'll give you $500, and they'll battle for it. And he'll go and sell them something for $2,000. Who needs them just part by part?
The liquidation guy.
Yeah. That's right.
So my mom was a bylaw officer. She was a business licenser for years, and I grew up around pawn shop guys and liquidation guys just like that. And that business was very, very, very clear to me. You buy cheap shit from China and you sell it and you piece it out and you make money. Even today, you can't go to a cannabis store. You think all that stuff was made here and that it actually costs $100 for a bong,
grind or whatever. Yeah, right.
Savvy listeners who have listened all 47 minutes in to me and Ryan's podcast, dhgate.com, Alibaba. The supply chain might be fucked up for a little bit, but you can get stuff for dirt cheap and you can buy it by the piece.
Yeah, there used to be Alibaba had this, you buy night lights for mountain biking, these bright lights, and some companies will sell them for $200 for $300 or $800, whatever you want to sell them for, in bike shops. But if you get 10 friends together, we all pitch in, and use a minimum of 10 buys, you can buy the sickest, brightest lights for $100, $80, $100, as long as you can get them all, right? So that's that happens. That's as long as you're willing to put a little effort in and then wait 6 months for it to get here, or 3 months, whatever. But
the Shenzhen secret, as they call it. I just got to go where it's made.
Yeah, it's good and bad because we should be buying locally too at the same time, right?
As much as I can buy local, I do.
Yeah,
but there's a limit to everything, right? I'm not gonna. There's some things that I need cheap stuff of, and I like to buy quality in absolutely everything that I can. But sometimes I just need a cheap thing to do this.
Yeah, right, for sure. Yeah, fair enough, man. I got all this podcast stuff off Amazon, except my computer.
My whole, exactly. Everything that I do for podcasting, making YouTube videos, everything is from Amazon. And it's as cheap as I could possibly buy it for, except for the DSLR and my iMac.
Yeah. I was gonna ask you about that. So you're podcasting before. I use my phone. I bought a new iPhone 11 just because it was good. I had an iPhone 8 I was using before for my podcast. I was doing one angle, but I don't really care. But what were you using before? Were you using a DSLR for it?
I never recorded the podcast.
Oh, you just audio
because there was video limitations.
Yeah, because the video, a DSLR only films for so long, right?
Yeah. Okay. I learned why. There's a rule to sell it as a DSLR camera and not a video camera. It can only record for 12 minutes. It can't record for 13 minutes. So that's why it cuts at 12 minutes, 59 seconds every time.
Because I watch these podcasts that I watch all the video, and the behind the scenes, they all have DSLRs. I don't get it. They have 3 angles, but they can't be going every 12 minutes, turning the thing back on. It just seems strange.
There's a guy running it though. Right? When we're watching those, shout out to my videographer, Brandon Keats, Third Wheel Marketing. He's a G.
Yeah.
He has there's a thing called Mixer, and then you can have 3 DSLRs going and live streaming, and it's not, I don't know. There's some way to finesse it so that it's not clipping like that, and you can.
It's almost like the cameras are a portal, and you're recording remotely, separately.
Exactly, like a news camera feed would be. Camera 1, camera 2, camera 3.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I'll be that pro someday. Maybe, I don't know. 3 mics, 3 cameras.
How's the podcast doing? I know it's interesting to talk about the podcast, the business of podcasting in the podcast, but I think people find it interesting.
Yeah, for sure. I don't. As far as the business goes, I just do it for fun. I haven't done one in a while. I hadn't. Well, I took 2 or 3 months off. I was kind of just really wasn't into it, and then I don't get a ton of views. I don't. I don't put a lot, like the production value is just what it is. Like I'm not trying to change it. Like I made this backdrop and stuff. But,
The set upgrades are sick.
yeah. Yeah. And so I don't really put a lot of effort into, this is going to sound bad. And if anybody's listening, don't take this the wrong way. But like, I just like the fact that there's no pressure to it. I just do it.
That's
like if
good.
it was like super prime, I had like a crazy intro music and stuff going on, I'd always feel like I had to like really be set up and super pro. Like if the audio cuts out halfway through, I'll still post and just put a weird, like some kind of jokey image at the back, right? So I don't get my views drop when I stop doing it. So the consistency was working when I first was doing it. I was getting more views at the end. My most viewed podcast between audio and YouTube is like maybe 350 an episode for an episode.
Okay, that's pretty good though, right? The fact that 350 people want to spend any amount of time listening to you is
even if
amazing
it's 5 minutes
to me.
on YouTube. Yeah. And that was the most I'd get. Some of them have like 40. You know what I mean? Like, just depends.
Totally.
And I don't know what it is. Sometimes like it just depends how much the person who comes to the show usually helps me more than I help them as far as like notoriety and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
So it depends if that person's really popular, they have a lot of friends, and usually it's the people who I don't think are going to make a lot of audio or a lot of views are the ones who do. Because they'll have a lot of like grassroots friends, like, oh, you're on this, and their friends are excited to see them on the podcast because they haven't seen them, like they're not like normally on this kind of stuff, right?
Right, a macro
fun,
influencer.
Man. Yeah, but it's fun, man. I dig it because I want to become a better listener and a better communicator, and I think it's just like having to sit and talk to somebody that I want to talk to, but I can't like get up and just get, like we talked about earlier, not getting distracted, that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But no, it's going okay. I want to have like 50 in the tank before I maybe try to promote it or get like, really do a lot of promotion behind it. It's just like social media stuff. But I don't really do much research on it. Like I'm part of a couple podcast groups. Everyone's like, well, how do you do this? How do you advertise? And I'm just like scroll by, I'm like, whatever. But if I had to do it for a living, I don't know, man. I don't know. And I'd love to know how to monetize it for sure. Like maybe get sponsors, but
it's a joke. It's
YouTube,
a joke.
Yeah.
Don't even go there. You don't.
Yeah.
I want to dive into it right now. People that actually make money podcasting are like Joe Rogan. Everybody else pretends like they do or gets a couple $100 gigs here and there. But the number one way that I've found to make money in content is by to continue making free content and not asking for money.
Right.
But then actually when you need money, having a decent idea of something to actually create from. But I think the power of media is getting a lot of, like my mom always told me, get a job somewhere you want a discount. Creating media around these things, the things that I find important, have given me the opportunity to have like so much free shit and so many discounts. Like it blows my mind as I look over at this brand new magical butter machine or like this handful of vapes. I got fucking magic mushrooms. I got a box full of free magic mushrooms just because
sick, out of my way. Yeah.
Well, they're great. Here, I'm going to show you because they'll be happy that I did this.
Yeah. Well, I used to work in the ski industry. I get like, that's the thing, the same thing. You just get a bunch of like ski stuff. What do you got there?
They sent me this nice box. Super fun guy, which I thought was funny.
That's going to take off soon too, I guess, eh?
It's going to be huge. Check this out. They got, there's.
Jeez, dude.
Packed mushrooms. They write medicinal mushrooms on it. There's micro doses, 30 microdoses.
I've seen,
And then these ones are 0.3 caps, and they have like golden teacher mushrooms, and then lion's mane, 5-HTP, CBD, ginseng.
Shit.
So
it's like a Paul Stamets stack almost with a bit of extra shit in it.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So
that's pretty good.
Like aside from, you might not ever actually make money from YouTube or any of this stuff. Yeah. But the free shit is great.
Yeah, like I had visions of grandeur to do it right, and I was like, oh, that'd be cool. And I was like, what if I started like selling stuff? Like I thought about doing this thing called making some coffee, call it casual coffee, and just like try to sell my coffee through my podcast. And I was like, I googled it. Somebody else has a name in the U.S., but if they don't sell it here, I might do it. But yeah, kind of the same thought. I was like, how much money can you make podcasting unless you have a giant audience or you're doing like a Patreon thing or something like that, right? And I have a full-time job, so I don't have like the can't
hustle,
spend
the need.
Yeah. I mean, no, I would.
Patreon's a weird world.
What's that?
Patreon's a weird world.
I never even looked at it. I don't know. It's kind of like a ongoing crowd, like GoFundMe or crowdfunding thing, right?
Yeah, I have literal guilt. I know that people would probably give me a couple $100, like between my Instagram and my YouTube and like the thousands of people that watch me constantly.
Yeah.
I'm sure I could get a couple $100 every month just to keep doing what I do. But
Right.
I feel guilty asking for it.
It's weird, man. You feel like a bit of a charity, right? 'Cause you're like, what am I doing this for, right? Like, I'd almost rather talk about some sponsorship, like the Cash App or something. At least then I'm not asking, you know?
That's kind of
It's like
what you get with Patreon. Like you give your peeps something extra. Like they get
different content.
early release to the content or like special content or like, you know, I've seen some creators who go on YouTube and at the start or at the end of the video, it's like, and thank you to King Kyle, Shelby 712, and Dick Slapper for your $3, $5, $7 contributions this month.
Right. Well, like Joe Rogan was talking about how his first sponsor was the Fleshlight, and he said they sold so many. Like they sponsored. I think that's what where the model came from, because like I listen to a lot of podcasts from the California area, and they all have the same sponsors at different times throughout their like podcasting weeks or whatever. So I mean, those were the days, I'm sure. But right now, it's just fun to do.
Fleshlight.
Like,
Speaking of free stuff, you know, I'm always I'm always looking for. It doesn't have to be cannabis or magic mushrooms. We'll take some fleshlights.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, no, I think it's I just like it, man. Like I like talking to people. I talk to strangers a bunch, and I actually like strangers quite a bit, because they if you talk to them, you kind of just like, they don't know what's going on. You're kind of, if you like see on the bus and they're talking to somebody, you can kind of like fuck with them in a funny way where they just don't quite get why you're talking. And not if you're weird or whatever, but like I just like talking to people in a way that makes them think, they walk away and go, that was interesting, but it might make them chuckle a bit, you know? They walk away laughing kind of. But
I sit beside people at the bar all the time. I see people like specifically by themselves at the bar, and because I went to restaurants a lot by myself.
Yeah.
And still do. I'll sit like one seat over from them and just start talking to them, because, you know, it's a situation that I get to leave, or I get to meet somebody incredibly interesting, or have a awkward conversation for the next 40 minutes. And
well, there's no obligation, right? Like I travel a lot for work on my own, and I'm in Toronto a lot. I'm on the island a bunch, or whatever, and I just sit at the bar and like, what's up, man? You know?
Yeah, see, I'd come talk to you.
Yeah, or like something where like you sit and watch TV and a play happens, or you're like, that was weird, eh? And then you don't even just like, you know, you'll be able to have some commonality or common ground with the person just by if they're staring at the TV and they say I don't watch sports, but I'll sit and watch a football game at a bar because I have nothing else to do, and I'll be like, oh, you know, and that kind of just lets you just in the door to talk to somebody, and then you pretty much like, I've spent some crazy nights in Toronto just meeting people at the bar. Like I'm for dinner, and then all of a sudden there's 15 people, and you don't know what, like you just, you know, trying to find your way home. But like, yeah, it's kind of like just put the podcast, just talking to people. It's cool. It's fun.
I love it. Speaking of weird Toronto experiences, when I was there, when we saw each other last time, I ended up, my brother-in-law was taking his final shift at a bar that coincidentally was like 8 doors down from the restaurant I threw my event at. And my Airbnb was, you know, a baseball's throw away from both. Yeah. So I was walking home my first night there, and I was like Harrison, doesn't Sarah's brother, doesn't Mike work here? And so I messaged him, and he's like, yeah, man, I'm working here tonight. He's like, do you want me to put you on guest list? And I was like, you know what, like, okay. And I went, and this is why I love Toronto, and like jumping back to all the culture and amazingness that goes on there. It was a fucking all vinyl, 7-inch vinyl, Afro-Cuban beat night. And the club was packed. It was an absolute vibe. I got there at like 10 o'clock, and I like talked to Mike, and he's like, I'm glad you got here at 10 so that we could actually have a chance to talk, because it gets crazy. And I'm like, I'm like, really? And he's like, yeah, man, like just wait. And by 11 o'clock, hour later, it was a packed club, hundreds of people, and it was the weirdest music I've ever heard. It was like 1960s Afro-Egyptian, gypsy, like there was no drop, there was no bass, there was no none of that, and it was a pure vibe.
Yeah. Well, it's the niche stuff, right? So it's like private clubs. They play weird music, or like I don't, around here where I live, it's just all the standard like, and just like the stuff you hear. I don't hear it till I go to the bar, but like that kind of shit. Everyone thinks they're on the forefront, so they go. If you get 100 people think they're on the forefront, they'll always go to your bar. Like if you only need those people. If nobody else knows, that's all you need is to pack the bar every night with these 50 or 1,500 or 500 weird people. And Toronto's got that scene. Toronto's got a scene where, like, in my opinion, Toronto has a great. I mean, their entertainment scene is killer. People go out there. They go out. Like people just do shit. Like on a Wednesday, restaurants are packed.
Restaurants are full. Packed. It amazes me when I was there. You might not be the same right now, but I was
sure.
jaw dropped. Like, oh, look at all these people spending money at restaurants. Alberta is fucked right now, especially with Western crude going into the $20 a barrel range. Like, it's I started selling wine kind of at the tail end of everybody actually getting back from 2014 recession in Alberta. And, right now it's like, it's dire times. Like there's going to be, at the end of this, if anywhere's the hardest hit in Canada for an economic crisis, it's going to be right here at home because oil's worthless.
Right.
Restaurants are all going to shutter. Like I know because they've closed all the bars and restaurants now. And there's so many operating on such razor thin margins. Like there's going to be a lot of people that can't reopen. It won't be a feasible reality. So
that's a thing that's going on a lot. Like even just here, just there's small businesses. Rents are huge. Margins aren't big. Even if your margins are big, the huge rent can chop into that fast, right?
Yeah.
So it's really tough, man, to think like kind of compounding recessions, right, or compounding problems, whether it's the oil thing of lack of oil or like even like the lumber industry or whatever is kind of tanking. And if something like this comes along, it's not even a level set. It's just like a demolishing it, right? And it's not even like bringing you back down to your, to make you learn. It's like just demolishes everything.
Yeah, it's gonna make cannabis its bitch. It's gonna cannabis was already getting its ass wiped.
Isn't there cannabis sales have gone up?
I bet cannabis sales have gone up. Doesn't mean the producers or like the market
no, I'm just
saved.
saying like I'm just saying it's kind of like when alcohol sales go up during like tough times, right? That's like a known thing where they watch alcohol sales go up when shit goes weird or when there's like a war or something like that or whatever it is. But
L'chaim.
Yeah, I'm out of beer. I don't want to get up and get a new one, but yeah, I think dude, I don't know. The virus thing, it comes up again for sure, but I don't know what the hell's going on. And I'm not even going to try to I don't like all the yelling and screaming either way. So
yeah, I don't.
And like, what have you been doing? Like, have you been just? I'm curious. Are you self-isolating, and what are you doing indoors? So you just like, are you going out doing stuff? Like, nothing in your responsible way, but like, are you like playing guitar again, or playing music, or working? Yeah.
You know, like again, my whole house is my playground.
Right.
I'm so happy that I bought a house and have space. And over the years, I've been fortunate enough to like buy everything I've ever wanted.
Right.
There's weed growing in the basement that keeps me happy. Oh, you can hear me? Yeah, we're good.
Yeah, no, we're good now. We're good.
There's weed growing in the basement. I got hundreds and hundreds of records. I got turntables galore, drums, guitars. Like, my computer in itself is a big video game. I can keep writing music. If I'm trapped indoors, I'm just gonna figure out a way to like create something that, creates a digital footprint. I like the excuse to be here and not have to go out at all. It's it feels comfortable to me, to be super honest. Like I don't need to go anywhere. Like I went out today to get butane, and that was the first time I'd left in 5 days, and I only did that because I was worried that they were going to close stores where I could get butane. Like I want to be able to dab.
Like, there's no run on butane, I guess. It's funny because like I mean, I've been hanging out at home. I don't do a ton. I mean, I try to usually do a lot, but it's more that, like I said earlier, when you're forced to do it, it's a different thing.
I don't feel
not even forced to, but like, it's also, if I don't. It's just weird. Like I went for a bike ride on the block today. I bike by some people, and they're always like, dude, what? Like kind of like this weird, awkward like interaction of like, don't come too close to me and stuff. It's kind of strange, but
It is a weird one. I don't mind. Like I've had to talk to a few people and go to a few places, and I don't mind standing like a few feet away from you and talking. It doesn't.
Okay
It doesn't really bother me to not shake somebody's clammy ass, fucking gross hand. I think it's such a weird tradition the whole time. Like I like the fist bump a lot.
Yeah.
And I've been doing the elbow bump now. Like the few times I have had to go out because I've been watching this for months. Like one of my big fears is getting sick. I don't like hospitals. I don't like any of this,
Right.
and I'm way too into current events and global.
Are you a bubble boy?
economies.
Do you have like allergies and stuff? Are you like, do you get sick?
Yeah, I have really bad allergies. Like I get, as soon as
same.
spring hits, I get fucked up. I have to take Flonase, antihistamines every day. I had a couple of bad experiences as a kid. Like I don't like any of it. So it stresses me out a little bit more and makes me even more cautious. So for like, a couple of weeks, I've already been given the elbow bump or, like I don't want to touch your hands. Even on our way to Toronto in February, like, I had masks with me and gloves and stuff, and I felt silly. I didn't end up wearing them because I felt silly, but the reality was, like, I got home and off the plane I was on, and I got, like, a flu bug, and I was fucking sick.
I got worked between Vancouver and Toronto and trade shows and everything else we were doing. Like, I was bouncing around so much. I was haggard. Like, I got back. I got sick in January, came back, recovered, did, like, 3 or 4 trips back and forth to Toronto, got super sick again. I was like, man, I gotta stop. Like, I mean, even just, I wonder how it's gonna be like now on planes. Everyone's gonna be wearing a mask. Right. Like not now, but like in like 8 months or whatever. Like whatever we go back to, whatever normal is from moving forward. But
it's hard because I need to travel. Like I need to travel if I want to be successful going forward. I need to be on a plane. I was gonna be in Chicago in April. I was gonna be in Nashville this week. Like So I don't know for how long can it stop me. Like you just said, almost every time I go on a plane, I end up getting sick. It's a weird thing to think that now there's like something with this global spread killing people. Like again, every time I go on a plane, I seem to fucking get sick. So what's the difference now?
Yeah. Like, yeah. I mean, well, now you could probably go and like, I mean, they're doing. A guy that I work with, or the guy that works with me, or whatever you want to say. Like he's a contractor guy. And he was flying back. He's like, yeah, they're just wiping down this. They're like wiping down the before you get on. They disinfected all. They spray it with whatever Lysol and shit. Everybody gets on the plane. I'm like, I don't know how much that's working, but
I wish they had done that before. Here's the thing that blows my fucking mind. As we hit an hour and 10, and we'll probably sign off in the next 10 or 15.
Yeah, pretty soon. Yeah, for sure.
Is the idea that the U.S. government has $670 billion to throw into the fucking stock market when it crashes. The Canadian government all of a sudden has $70 billion extra dollars. Every airline can clean their planes to the standard I would expect all the time so that I stop getting fucking sick every time I'm on it. Like, why does it take some PR pandemic for government and private industry to realize their actual social responsibility? If you had $670 billion, Donald fucking Trump, sitting around, why didn't you give people free healthcare? Why didn't you give people university? Like, it seems bullshit. Now I see all these people coming out being like, every American should get $2,000 a week until the coronavirus pandemic's done. It's like, no. Don't give people $2,000 fucking dollars so they can go buy drugs and pay off their debts to the banks again. Give them healthcare. Give them the opportunity for higher learning. If there's all that money and it exists, why is it just now that it becomes a reality to access those funds? Why couldn't we have, created the opportunity to have 10,000 more doctors because we've been funding low income neighborhoods for higher education?
Yeah. And then they print money, deflate the dollar, but deflate the value of the dollar and try to stimulate the economy. But like, even they're flying planes, like planes have to fly now. I think this is only in Europe, but to hold their spot, they have to have a certain number of flights to keep their like, so like, well, we have to fly dummy flights just to be able to keep flying regular flights when we can fly flights again, like that kind of shit. And then they bail out the airlines because they're going to be so broken, or like even back in the day when they bailed out car companies, all these things. I guess it's to keep people employed, but yeah, like you said, use the money 10 years ago or 100. Use that money so long ago to get people back. Like healthcare would have been huge, right?
Would have been.
And now, yeah. But even though, like, if you look at our healthcare system, it's still strapped and it's free, and we're like 90% occupancy all the time, kind of thing. And like, it's not free, but it's kind of free.
We could fund it more, though. Again, like the Canadian government printed $70 billion to bail out the TSX. Yeah. So why wasn't there, why are they trying to change how doctors get paid and all these different things? Why couldn't they have injected a couple $2 billion into the healthcare industry 3 years ago, made our debt a little bit bigger, but created a better buffer for our systems? Yeah. If the entire world, except for Saudi Arabia, is running on a debt, then why aren't we running a debt that makes sense for the quality of life for the citizens? If everybody's just going to keep incurring debt and debt and debt, then why isn't that debt in place to give the absolute best care for the people that need it?
Right.
And you know what? I don't mind being enslaved to the system. We're clearly enslaved to the system, but I want the system to at least try and take care of me.
Be an asshole about it.
Yeah, but like,
No, I mean, the system's being an asshole about it, like the system could be a lot nicer about it. Oh, we're going to just sit there but one thing it's such a big wheel, man. And like, even like, you listen to prime ministers talk and presidents talk, and it's almost like, I'm like, yeah, whatever. I'm kind of like, whatever, man, you're going to fucking do whatever you're going to do. Somebody's going to get fucked over at some point by it. They're not really helping anybody.
No, I just really wish that funding like this and these rash funds would go to things that actually mattered to the greater good of society, as opposed to bailing out the banks. Like, I get that the economy's down. I understand how fucked the stock market is. And you know what's crazy to me? 1987, 2008, there's lots of bankers slitting their wrists in the middle of the street. Nobody's jumping out of windows right now, and it's the worst crash ever. Yeah. Ever. Why can't things go back to zero? And if you want to go even deeper, since, I want to go there, these are the things that I've been talking about with the Illuminati and New World Order and One World Bank for a long time. As you look at these economies deflate their money to an extent where everybody is in debt and it's all worthless, then why isn't One World Bank of independent wealth of the most powerful men in the world the reality to stifle the economic crippling that's literally going on? The reality is private equity can bail out all these places. They're just waiting for the right moment and the right collapse and perfect storm to put these systems in place. Yeah.
Well, it's definitely designed, whether there's a virus or not, but the actual collapse in the way the economies fall. I mean, there's a definite design to it, or like a hope for it to happen, right? In like we didn't mean for it to happen type kind of way. And then they can just jump in. And I mean, it's even with these things we're seeing now, where you see like bills being passed and freedoms being taken away behind the scenes.
Mm-hmm. Really quickly.
Yeah, for sure. And then you come out of the fog and like, wait, what's going on now? And, over time, these small little things get taken away. It becomes a huge, I don't know how long from now, but like these small freedoms get taken away, Well,
think about all the other current events that are happening, yet all we hear about is the virus. Like, if you actually start digging and caring a little bit more, because I'm obsessed with current events, Iran is constantly now attacking and bombarding the United States in Iraq after they killed the general a month ago. In Alberta, they've sold a huge piece of the grasslands that the Conservative Party said they weren't going to sell, that'll now be industrialized and, is a real jeopardy for our ecosystem for whatever reason that might be. It's a great guise and a perfect storm to do whatever you want without being judged at this moment. All eyes are on Big Dumb Donnie and every stupid fucking thing that he says, and nobody really cares about what the changing of the tide is behind the scenes. And that's definitely the scariest part. Is we're concerned about healthcare what else happens.
Yeah. Well, we're just not aware of it. We're just like so caught up on it. That's like when we do come around, we're like, what the hell? We fight week, then it's too late to kind of fight it. But
yeah, that media machine.
Yeah. Well, we're getting dark there, man. But yeah, this is a cool chat. I'm glad we could figure out time to do this. I'm glad it worked out. Hopefully, we can when I get the audio files, we got to edit it together.
Oh, it'll be
See
easy.
how that goes.
I'll do it. I'll do it, or you'll do it. Whatever, one way or the other. But I think that was a really good chat. I think we nailed a lot of business, current events, personal opinions. I think that was an absolutely fantastic podcast, and everybody that listened will get good value out of it.
Yeah, for sure. So how do people find you, man? What do they do?
Nice.
Just tell them you're.
My name is the Cannabis Sommelier. Cannabis Sommelier Andrew Freedman, the Cannabis Sommelier. You can find me on Instagram at the Cannabis Somm. You can find me on YouTube, the Cannabis Sommelier. You can type into Google the Cannabis Sommelier Andrew Freedman, any of those things, and you're going to find a whole bunch of stuff about me. Check out my articles, check out my YouTube videos, cannabis and wine pairings, cannabis and craft beer pairings, how to cocktail with cannabis. Basically, anything cannabis related, you can find it attached to my name and enjoy it.
Yeah, sweet, man. Well, that's rad. Well, thanks again, man. It's cool. I think we'll have to do this again sometime.
Yeah, I look forward to it.
Yeah, cool. Okay, well, let's, I'm not going to hang up. I'll just go turn the camera off and we have a quick chat after.
I'm going to end the recording.
Yeah, cool. Dump a glass of water. Oh, fuck. That's the perfect ending. I just got to unplug some shit. I don't know, we dodged a bit of a bullet there. It's just on the table.